Can Christians listen to metal? If you couldn't tell already, my answer to that question is a resounding yes. Yes, I think Christians could listen to metal. I think Christians should listen to metal. Metal is my all-time favorite music genre of music. I love to listen to metal. I love to play metal guitar. I wear metal T-shirts and go to metal shows. I love metal. It's a huge part of my life. Um, but an even bigger part of my life, in fact, something that my entire life centers around, is Jesus Christ. I love Jesus, and I love him infinitely more than I do metal. Jesus Christ is so much better than metal. Um, and so I think it's an important question to ask, right? Can Christians listen to metal? In fact, I've gotten attacked because I'm a Christian and I listen to metal. Some of my fellow Christians have told me, you are living in sin, or you're not truly a Christian because you listen to metal. Um, I study theology at a local Bible college, and one of my fellow students, who's an older student, man, he would take pictures of my metal shirts and go around and show them to the different professors and say, look what this guy's listening to. And we had exchanged numbers at some point, and I remember he would just text me in the middle of the night out of nowhere and say, "You're living in sin," and all this just crazy stuff. And so I was like, okay. I stopped wearing my metal shirts around him, because clearly it was causing him to stumble. But anyways, uh, obviously, I think it's okay for Christians to listen to metal. Uh, and here's the thing: this is not a primary issue. Um, even though a lot of people say no, Christians can't listen to metal, and a lot of people say yes, Christians can listen to metal. Um, it's important to realize this is not a primary issue. I don't even think it's a secondary issue. I think maybe this is more a tertiary issue, or in other words, you can say no, you can say yes, and we can still, have fellowship. We can still be Christians and disagree. It's okay to disagree on this topic, uh, I think. Um, but here's the thing: metal gets such a bad rap. And I think a lot of people, a lot of Christians especially, might look at metal, they see the image, they hear it, it sounds so aggressive and brutal, they hear the screaming, and they're like, oh, there's no way a Christian could listen to that. Um, uh, I think in so many people's minds, especially Christians, they just think that like metal and Jesus just cannot mix, that they couldn't be farther apart. Um, um, and here's the thing, though. I mean, there is so much metal out there that is evil and satanic that I don't think Christians should listen to. And I think maybe a lot of Christians see stuff like that and they kind of throw out the baby with the bathwater, because there is a lot of really good metal out there that I think Christians can listen to, with some really good lyrical content, some positive lyrical content. Not all metal is satanic and evil, right? Some of it is, right? And I don't think Christians should listen to that stuff. So here's the thing, though. There's a lot of music out there. I think every single genre of music out there has, parts of it that are good and parts of it that are bad, or certain bands or artists that people should listen to and people shouldn't listen to. In fact, I think some of the most innocent sounding music today is some of the most evil music out there. And it's actually kind of, deceiving, because you see a sweet, pop star, that sounds so sweet and innocent, but her lyrics are just so horrible and evil and sexual and just, I would never let, I don't have kids, but if I did, I would never let them listen to stuff like that. But there's a lot of metal that I would let them listen to, right? So I don't think something is, inherently evil just because of the way it sounds, right? Metal is not evil just because of the way it sounds or even, looks sometimes. Um, Here's the thing, though. I think Christians should listen to, music in general, just with a sense of discernment and a filter. When people ask me, how can you listen to metal as a Christian, right? Oftentimes I might respond to them, how can you listen to whatever genre of music you listen to as a Christian? Because it's not the genre that makes it evil, right? Or satanic. Um, there's a lot of metal out there that isn't satanic or blasphemous. But like I said, there's so many innocent sounding bands that are, or evil, or their lyrical content is just something that I wouldn't want to listen to, that I don't think Christians should listen to. Um, so, like I said, I think Christians should listen to music, consume content, or consume, art or whatever it may be with a filter. And I just want to share with you my filter for listening to metal. It's two things. The first one is blasphemy. Are the things that I'm listening to blasphemous? Do the songs and bands blaspheme my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? Are they reviling him and hating him, saying really horrible things about him in their music? If they are, then I won't listen to them. There's so many bands that I had to stop listening to when I came to Christ because of that. In fact, I think that's my primary filter is blasphemy. I refuse to listen to anything that blasphemes Jesus Christ. And there's a lot of metal out there that does that. And so there's a lot of metal I don't listen to. That's okay. Jesus Christ is so much better than those bands, right? My second criteria is ultra violence and just ultra graphic metal. Um, the primary band I'm thinking of is Cannibal Corpse. Cannibal Corpse. You just take a look at a couple of their album covers. I wouldn't recommend looking them up if you've never seen them before. But man, they're some of the most disgusting and vile, just depraved album covers out there. And same thing with their song titles. I don't want that stuff in my head, right? And same thing with blasphemy. Uh, I think of bands like Merciful Fate. One of my favorite bands of all time before I came to Christ was Merciful Fate. Personally, I think some of the best heavy metal riffs and solos uh, were in Merciful Fate. Yet they had songs like Black Mass, where some of the lyrics were literally just "Hail Satan" on repeat. And the thing about music is it gets stuck in your head, and I don't want that stuck in my head. As a Christian, I don't want that on repeat in my own mind. Um, and same thing with the ultra violent. Same thing with the ultra violent um, lyrics and imagery for album covers. I don't want that stuff in my head. I don't want to be thinking about that stuff. As Christians, we should set our minds on the things above, right? Not the things of the world, especially these really ultra violent, blasphemous things of the world. So there's so many bands that I had to cut out once I came to Christ. Bands like Slayer, Merciful Fate, Cannibal Corpse, Venom, Morbid Angel. There's bands that I continue to listen to that they might sound really awesome, but if their lyrics uh, don't pass through my filter, then I just won't listen to them. And I'm not saying that the cats. And I'm not saying that these bands sound bad musically. Like in fact, I think like I was saying before about Merciful Fate, like and some of these bands like Morbid Angel, like in terms of music and sound, I mean, Altars of Madness is one of the greatest death metal albums of all time. Uh, Musically, like the sound, it sounds so awesome as a metal fan, or Cannibal Corpse, like some of their music sounds really cool and awesome and brutal. But I won't listen to them. Just like I said, because of my filters. And so, I'll just continue to use discernment as I listen to metal and discover new bands. But recently, I discovered a band called Nocturnus. They're like an old school death metal band, and that album was awesome, right? It was like, dude, this is so good. I can't believe I've never listened to this album before. But then as I kept listening to it, I started hearing stuff. I'm like, are they actually saying that about Jesus? And so I went and I read the lyrics, and they were saying some exceedingly blasphemous things about Jesus. And I'm like, okay, can't listen to this band. It sounds great, but it's not worth it. Or I just don't want to listen to it anymore, right? Um, you know, my question for if there's any metalheads out there, any Christian metalheads um, who like to listen to blasphemous metal, or ultra graphic, ultra violent metal, my question is why? Like, why would you want to listen to something that's blaspheming Jesus Christ, the one who died for you, who paid the price for your sin? You deserve God's judgment. And Jesus Christ stepped in and he paid that price on your behalf. And he's freely given you his grace and mercy and eternal life through faith in his son. Like, if you love him, why would you want to listen to songs that blaspheme him, right? Like, do you think Christians can listen to metal? He wants to shred, and he does shred. He likes to shred a lot of things. Um, I remember one time I had a friend at church who really liked this band, Cradle of Filth. And I mean, Cradle of Filth's one of those bands where it's like, I don't even think they sound that good. So I would have never even listened to them, regardless. But man, they have a particular T-shirt, and if you're a metalhead, maybe you know this T-shirt. It says something just really horrible on the back, and I had a friend who really liked this band, and it was one of his favorite bands, and I was like, dude, have you seen this T-shirt that they have? And he's like, oh, I know what you're talking about. And so I'm like, dude, why would you want to listen to this band when they say this about Jesus? And so I do have some concern, with Christians who are just kind of okay with listening to just whatever, right? Um, Man, why would you want to listen to something that blasphemes Jesus if you love him? Um, anyways, now one thing I want to mention too is, that although I don't listen to bands that are blasphemous or ultra graphic or ultra violent, I'm totally okay with listening to bands that disagree with what I believe in. A prime example of that is the band Atheist. Couldn't be more different than what I believe, right? It's just in the title itself, right? Atheist. Uh, I'm not an atheist. So why would I listen to this band? Yeah, they disagree with me. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to listen to people that disagree with you. Um, uh, the two albums I mainly listen to by them are Piece of Time and Unquestionable Presence. And they're awesome metal albums. I think every metalhead should go and check them out and listen to them, even if you're a Christian metalhead. Yeah, they're called atheists, but I've read through the lyrics. I haven't found anything blasphemous, at least in those particular albums. Yeah, they disagree, or they say things that I disagree with. But you'd be surprised to read some of their lyrics and find that, hey, I'm a Christian. I actually agree with some of these things. Uh, Expressing some of their, feelings about religious hypocrisy, and some of the prosperity preachers out there making a ton of money, exploiting God's word. I mean, yeah, I totally disagree with that stuff too. um, so yeah, I'm totally okay with listening to bands that I disagree with, because it's okay to disagree with people, right? um, but I'm not okay with these blasphemous bands, or, like I said, graphic, ultra violent bands. So I want to address some of the Christians here who maybe aren't a big fan of metal. It just let you know that, man, the metal community is so awesome, and there's a lot of positivity in the metal community. And I remember when I wanted to go see Death to All, a tribute to my all-time favorite band, Death. I love Death. Yeah, like I said, they're my all-time favorite band, so I had to come see Death to All when they came out to my area. And I asked my wife if she wanted to go, and she was a little nervous. She didn't really want to go. She was like, "Oh, the metalheads, they're so scary. I don't think I could go to the show. I'm in danger. And that was so funny because afterwards, we were walking out and we were talking about the show, and she's like, "Hey, like, the metalheads are actually super awesome. They're super cool and super fun to watch, and they're just having fun, and they're really nice and really cool people." And um, that's pretty much been my experience. 99% of the time with metalheads is they're just super awesome, super cool people. Such an awesome community. Um, yeah, super cool to talk to. Man, I've even talked to people at shows about Jesus, and you'd be surprised how open they are about having conversations about that. And so, man, yeah, I truly think metal is the kind of genre that's for everybody. You might not think like, what, metal? There's a metal genre for me. I mean, metal is so diverse. There's such a wide range of just sounds and lyrical content, ranging from history and fantasy and philosophy and even Christianity. There's a ton of awesome Christian metal bands that I really love, and it's some of the best metal I've heard, just in general, right? And so I want to wrap up this video with a question, and just ask the metalheads out there, or even the Christian metalheads or Christians, anybody who's watching this video, man, if you have a question about metal, about Christianity, the Bible, Jesus Christ, whatever it may be, I'd love to engage those questions and just talk about Jesus, and hopefully just kind of serve as a bridge almost between Christians and the metal community, because I think it goes both ways. I think a lot of Christians misunderstand metalheads, right, or metal, and then I think a lot of metalheads misunderstand Jesus, or don't realize the fullness of Jesus. I think maybe sometimes they see uh, a side of it, or that they don't like. I mentioned before some of the prosperity stuff, and it's like, as a Christian, like, I hate that stuff too, um, right? And so I think they see a side that doesn't even really represent Jesus Christ and who he truly is well, and they hate that. And I mean, I hate that too. So hey, we might have more in common than you realize, metalheads, about Jesus. So yeah, leave a question down in the comments. We'd love to talk about them. And yeah, thanks for watching.